Hi, in this video I would like to look at two functions that are part of the p5.js DOM library. They are called select and select all. And the nice thing that we're going to get, you and me, here in this time and space that we're in, the nice thing that we're going to get from this topic is not just those two functions, but more about CSS selectors. If you recall, there's this idea in CSS where you have a selector, I don't know, in the year 2050 we'll be saying selector, but for now I'll just say selector, where you have this selector, an open curly bracket, a closed curly bracket, and then some name value pairs that assign style information. So I don't like this pen switching. So let's say, for example, you have an HTML file, and inside that HTML file you have a body, and inside the body maybe you have a paragraph, and another paragraph, and maybe you have a button. So there are three elements here. So in the previous video I made about CSS, the only selector I talked about, if I recall correctly, is that you could select a tag. So if I put P here, then any style information that I put here, like font size, 12 point, any style information that I put there gets applied to all paragraphs. However, here's a question for you. What if what you want to do is assign very little room here, by the way. It seems like I might be in a big space, but I'm very crowded. The thing here I'm banging into. What if what you wanted to do was apply this font size only to this paragraph? Well, in that case, there's a concept known as an ID. So let's make a list here over here. I'm going to make a little box here. What are the kinds of selectors? Now, I'm sure there's a much longer, more in-depth explanation of this that involves lots of sub-detail ideas of how you combine selectors and subcategories of selectors. But at its core, there are three main kinds of selectors. There is the tag itself, so all members of a tag type. So button would apply to all buttons on the page. P would apply to all paragraphs on the page. And you can extend from there the other types of DOM elements. Now there's a new kind called an ID, which is a single DOM element. So you can give a DOM element an ID as follows. PID equals unicorn. So this is called an attribute. So this is an attribute for this particular DOM element. It gets an ID in addition. There's a space there. I'll type this out on the computer, which will make it more clear. But there's a space between the P, and then you say ID equals unicorn. So now, if you wanted to apply style to just this, you might think what you would write is just the term unicorn. This is not exactly correct, though. Now, this is conceptually the right idea, but IDs are indicated by this pound symbol, or as people who live in today's age would call it a hash symbol. So the same thing you use for a hashtag, this pound. But I think of the old phones. I mean, new phones have this too, the pound symbol. Anyway, that's not important. But I'm going off on a tangent here. So if I say this, pound unicorn, that indicates I'm looking for an HTML element with the ID unicorn. Now you could do weird things like add the ID unicorn to this one, but you should not. Because the third kind of tag, tag is the wrong word. That's a tag, paragraph tag. The third kind of selector is a class. So class is a way of creating a group of elements, your own group. Grouping a bunch together. So let's say you have 100 paragraph elements on the page, but you want a way of selecting or applying a style to just those 10. You can make those all the members of a certain class. A class could go across multiple kinds of DOM elements. So you could have a bunch of paragraphs and a bunch of image tags and a bunch of div tags, and they could all be members of the same class. So and incidentally, The class is indicated by a dot. So a tag is just the tag itself, p, img, div. An ID is assigned via this hash symbol, and a class via the dot. And if I wanted to make this paragraph a member of a class, class equals rainbow. Okay? So this is, I said I was going to talk about the select and select all functions, but I'm sort of starting from this place of CSS, which I think is actually maybe a nicer place to start. So I want to look, I'm going to make an example that looks at how you apply a particular style to an ID, to a tag, to an ID, and to a class. And once we have that, I will also show you how to then access elements on the page via those same ideas. Select all the paragraphs. Select all the buttons. Or select this single button with a given ID. Okay? So coming back over here, I am at 6 minutes here. Let's make an example. Now to make this example, what I want to actually do is, and the volume's still working, I want to actually do is I want to start adding some HTML. So let's do this. P ID equals unicorn. And can you see this? Class equals rainbow. Unicorns. And then I'll make another one that has class equals rainbow, rainbows, and this is unicorns and rainbows. I need more space here for my weird. It's actually a unicorn. It's a single a unicorn, and this is rainbows. This is more rainbows, and this is just a plain paragraph. Just a plain paragraph. So what I'm showing you here is that I now have 4 paragraphs. If I select by paragraph, I'll get all 4. If I select by unicorn ID, I'll just get the first. If I select by the rainbow class, I will get all 3. So let's look at this. If I hit run, you can see there are all of the paragraphs. Now, let's add some style, and let's say unicorn, right? This is font size 16 point. Rainbow is, and I'll just do font size just to be, font size is 12 point, and P, font size. Now something really strange is going to happen here. 8 point. And let's make these quite a bit bigger. 48, 24, 12. So let's look at what's happening now. So something strange is going on here, which I didn't even really anticipate when starting this video, but I think this is kind of an important way of looking at it. What I probably should have done to be more clear is done something entirely different to all 3 kinds. But notice, all of those are paragraphs. So they should all be 12 point, right? But some of them are members of the rainbow class. Those are 24 points. And one of those that's a member of the rainbow class actually has the ID unicorn, so it's 48 point. So one thing you'll notice is there's a kind of a hierarchy here. An ID, the more specific you are, the more importance that style information is assigned. So in other words, the font size 48 point for an ID overrides what it was given for the class or tag. But we could do some things here so that's one thing that's important to see. Class overrides tag, ID overrides class, because you're getting more specific. Tag is very general, like all the paragraphs. Class is like, well, a group of those paragraphs. And ID is like, no, not all of them, not even a group of them, this exact specific one. So that takes greatest precedence. It's not you could think it's the order that I wrote it there, but I'm almost certain that if I move this from here to the bottom, it's the same. So it's not the order, it's the order of precedence is not the order you type them. It actually goes from tag, class to ID. But let's make this a little bit more clear. Let's do something like padding 16 point background color F0F. And then rainbow is the ones that are rainbow. Actually, so and then we'll split the background color here. And then the font size for unicorn is 48 points. So this, I think, makes a bit more sense, where you can see that all of the paragraphs get 16 point of padding. All of the paragraphs that are members of the rainbow class get a purple background, and only the one that has the unicorn ID gets a font size of 48 point. So this is a way of looking at how selecting by tag or selecting by class or selecting by ID will allow you to address elements and their style in more or less specific ways. Now, this video is about 10 minutes long. I said at the beginning, I'm going to talk about the select and select all function. And then kind of to lead up to that, I wanted to look at the different ways of selecting things, which are, oh, come back over here, which are, hello, which are by tag, by ID, or by class. So actually, I think now what I would suggest to you is create for yourself a page which has a whole bunch of DOM elements in it. Use different tags, paragraph, image, button, etc. Give some of things IDs, group things by class, and see if you can assign them all different styles and how that works and what overrides what. Just play around with that for a little bit, because in the next video, what I will show you how to do is what I said I was going to do at the beginning of this one, is then start to select them bring them into your code so that you could dynamically assign behaviors or events or callbacks or dynamic styles via this idea of IDs and classes and that sort of thing. So that's what I'll actually do in the next video, but I might say, like, stop, prepare yourself a page, and then in the next video, we're going to look at the JavaScript aspect of that. Okay, so thank you for coming and listening to the Unicorn and Rainbows show, which apparently is what this is. And I'm going to hit, come mouse, come, I'm going to stop this video and start the